She said I didn't deserve her, so I became the man her sister always dreamed of. Zella threw the ring box at my face and sneered. You should be grateful a girl like me even dated someone like you. The box bounced off my chest and landed near my feet. I didn't move. My fingers were still numb from holding the bouquet I'd brought to propose. The rain soaked my shirt, but I couldn't feel a thing. Behind her, Thompson held an umbrella over her head like some knight in shining armor. She didn't flinch as she stepped into his arms, her heels splashing through the shallow puddles on the sidewalk. He grinned at me like he'd just won a prize. "Come on, man, you had to know you were punching above your weight," he said. Zella didn't look back. "You're too nice, too plain, too average. I don't want to marry someone who can't even book a reservation at that fancy resort, let alone own a penthouse." I had actually booked it. I had the confirmation email in my inbox. I was even planning to surprise her with the keys to the penthouse I'd secretly bought after closing the biggest deal of my life. But she didn't care. Zella only ever saw what she wanted. She thought I was just a quiet, predictable man with no future. She didn't know who I really was. Or maybe she did, and it didn't matter to her anymore. When I didn't react, she scoffed. "Don't make this a big scene. Be mature. Let me go." I looked up and finally met her eyes. "I'm not stopping you." Zella blinked. For a moment, something flickered in her expression. "Good," she said too quickly, "because Thompson is everything you're not." Then they walked away, and I stood there holding that damn bouquet like an idiot. I laughed quietly. Not out of sadness, not even pain, but out of clarity. That night, I deleted every photo of her from my phone, blocked her number, and when her sister Louise called me the next day, crying, apologizing on Zella's behalf, begging me not to give up on love, I already knew it wasn't Zella who deserved me. It was the woman who had seen my worth from the very beginning. My name is Adam. Until a few weeks ago, I thought I had it all figured out. On the outside, I was just a regular guy. Quiet, polite, the kind who held doors open, remembered anniversaries, bought flowers without reason. Most people thought I was simple, predictable, the kind of man you don't notice at a party. But what they didn't know, what I never showed, was that behind every gentle smile, behind the ordinary job title and average apartment, was a man who built empires in silence. Zella was the only one who ever got close to that truth. We met 3 years ago at a gallery opening. She was elegance wrapped in ambition, the kind of woman who made every head turn but only looked straight ahead. When our eyes met, I thought I had accidentally stepped into someone else's spotlight. But she walked up to me, tilted her head, and said, "You don't look like you belong here. That's why I'm curious." I fell for her hard. Not just her beauty, but the way she carried herself, the way the world seemed to bend around her. For a while, I was proud to stand beside her. She said she liked that I didn't try to impress her, that I didn't fawn or beg, that I had potential. I should have noticed the red flag in that word, potential, like I was some project she could shape until I matched her lifestyle. But I was blinded. I mistook her critiques for care, her coldness for confidence, her control for love. At first, she made me feel chosen. Out of everyone who wanted her, she picked me. That felt like I mattered. What I didn't realize was that she didn't pick me because she saw my value. She picked me because she thought I was easy to shape. I let her decorate my apartment, change my wardrobe, decide where we went, what we did, even who I spoke to. She told me which friends were low tier and which events were worth our time. I let her because I thought compromising was part of love. It wasn't that I didn't have power, I just didn't use it. I let her think I was ordinary. I let her mock my second car. I never drove the small apartment I rarely slept in. I never corrected her when she called my modest office quaint. Never told her I owned the entire floor of that building. I wasn't with her to prove something. I was with her because somehow, in her chaotic, demanding way, she made me feel needed. But over time, something shifted. Compliments stopped, affection faded. In its place came subtle digs, comparisons, quiet disappointments that weren't even hidden anymore. "I don't get why you don't aim higher," she'd say, scrolling through pictures of luxury vacations. "You're smart, Adam, but you're not ambitious enough. You could be someone if you really tried." I used to smile through it, telling myself she meant well, that she believed in me. But deep down, I started to wonder, did she even see me? Then came the breaking point. I had planned the proposal for months, quietly bought the ring, booked the villa she always talked about, arranged a private chef, the rooftop dinner, the string quartet. And just before I could lead her there, she told me she needed space. She didn't think I was on her level, that maybe someone like Thompson, richer, flashier, louder, made more sense for her. She didn't know about the villa or the ring, didn't know I'd just sold my third startup for 8 figures. She thought she was leaving a safety net behind. She was walking away from the storm. The next day, I disappeared. No calls, no messages, no desperate pleas. I left her in silence.
But what surprised me most wasn't her betrayal. It was the phone call I got later that night. "Adam?" a soft voice said. "It's Louise, Zella's sister. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. You didn't deserve that. You're a good man." Louise, the quiet, observant one, who never interrupted but always noticed. We barely spoke in those 3 years. Just polite small talk at dinners, a few smiles at events. But I remembered how she looked at me. Not with judgment, not like I was a stepping stone or a project, just like I mattered. That call changed everything. For the first time, I realized I was never the one trying to prove my worth. Zella was the one who failed to recognize it. And Louise? She saw it from the very beginning. It started with a dinner, a small, quiet gathering at Zella's family estate. Just her parents, Louise, and me. Zella had asked me to come after a week of silence. After she walked into Thompson's arms, I hadn't expected to hear from her again. But that morning, she sent a message. "Come tonight. I want to talk properly." I should have ignored it, but curiosity has a way of creeping in, especially when someone who once held your heart wants another conversation. The dining hall was bathed in soft golden light, long candles flickering, the air scented with roses and polished wood. Everything was arranged too perfectly. Zella sat at the head of the table, composed, unreadable. Her father barely looked at me. Her mother nodded politely. Louise was already seated, her eyes locking on mine the moment I entered. Hesitation, maybe. Worry lingered there, but she said nothing. I sat beside Zella. She leaned over, smiling too perfectly. "I'm glad you came. Shows you're still mature enough to have a real conversation." I said nothing. Dinner began. Small talk. Her father ranted about business. Her mother praised Thompson's investments. Zella interjected occasionally, glancing at me, measuring something. Then came the blow. "I've decided to give us another try," Zella said casually, putting down her fork, "but only if you're ready to grow up." "Grow up?" I repeated slowly. She folded her hands neatly. "You've been distant, dramatic. I understand you were hurt, but we both made mistakes. Honestly, I don't blame you for being insecure. Thompson has more experience in certain areas." A heavy silence fell. Louise froze with her wine halfway to her lips. I kept my voice low. "So you're saying I should forget everything you did? That little public performance with Thompson? That was a mistake?" Zella smiled, generous. "Thompson and I were reminiscing. He's an old friend. It got emotional. I admit it went a little far, but that's not reason to throw away everything we had." "Throw away?" I repeated quietly. "You threw me away, then said I should be grateful." "Adam, don't be petty," she sighed. "If you just showed more ambition like Thompson, you'd understand how high-value men act." Louise spoke up. "Zella, stop." But Zella ignored her. "Thompson can offer me a future, luxury, legacy. You, Adam, you offer loyalty. Sweet, but not sustainable. I thought if you felt pressure, you'd finally step up." Pressure. It hit me. The proposal at my expense, the fake tears, the way Thompson held her, whispered to her in front of me. It was all planned, manipulated. You used me, I said, hurt me, humiliated me just to see if I'd fight harder for you? Zella tilted her head, feigning innocence. Is that so wrong? Love needs tests. No, I said, pushing back. Love needs trust, and you failed that. She stood. Adam, sit down. Don't make a scene. My parents are here. Her father spoke. Son, listen. Zella is emotional. She just wanted to see if you're serious. We'll overlook your behavior if you commit. I laughed coldly. You asked me to come here to talk, but you didn't want a conversation. You wanted control. Louise stood. Adam, wait. Let me walk you out. Zella's voice hardened. Of course. Let him run off with my sister now. That's what this is, isn't it? Her words hit like a grenade. Her mother gasped. Her father narrowed his eyes. What are you talking about? Louise said sharply. You're the one who cheated. Zella laughed coldly. Cheating, I said. I never slept with Thompson, but at least he makes me feel like I deserve more. Adam, he just makes me feel like I'm settling. I stepped forward, voice low but firm. You didn't cheat with your body. You cheated with your heart, with your mind. That's worse. Zella blinked, uncertain for once. I added, I was going to propose that day. I had the ring, the villa, the life you always said you wanted, and you spat on it. Her lips parted. For once, she had no words. Then Louise said softly, I knew something happened that day. I felt it. I told you, Zella, you were pushing too far. Zella snapped. Don't act innocent. You always wanted what I had. You think I didn't notice the way you looked at him? Louise didn't deny it. She just looked at me. Not with shame, not with pride, just the truth. I did look at him, she said, because you didn't, not the way he deserved. The air was heavy. Zella stared at her sister as if she were seeing her for the first time. Her hands clenched at her sides. I walked to the door, and before leaving, I turned once more. You told me I didn't deserve you, I said calmly, and you were right. I deserved better. Then I walked away, not just from the dinner, not just from the house, but from everything I had ever believed was love. I didn't go home that night. I drove for hours, no destination in mind, just the empty roads and the weight of Zella's words echoing in my head. Every red light felt like a slap. Every turn was a rerun of that moment. You should be grateful I even dated you.
But worst of all, it wasn't just the betrayal that broke me. It was the possibility that I had believed her. Believed I wasn't enough. Believed I had to prove my worth to someone who never even looked for it. I pulled over near the cliffs. The ocean was wild that night, waves crashing against the rocks like they were trying to scream louder than the voices in my head. I sat on the hood of the car, cold seeping into my spine, but I didn't care. The silence was the only thing that didn't lie. My phone buzzed. I ignored it. Again. Louise. My thumb hovered over the answer button. I didn't want pity. I didn't want comfort. I didn't want anyone to see the version of me barely holding it together. But I answered anyway. Adam, her soft, hesitant voice said, I saw you leave. I just wanted to make sure you were okay. I stayed silent for a few seconds. Then she asked, quietly, do you ever feel like everything you were building was just so you could hand it to someone else? I blinked. She was quiet, then added, yes, every day I watched Zella waste your love. Something inside me cracked. I hadn't expected her to see me, not really see me. I thought love was supposed to be enough, I said. Louise breathed in, then out. No, being loved is supposed to be enough, but only if the other person values it. She understood. She got it. And that terrified me. Zella had spent 3 years beside me, never truly understanding, never caring to learn. But Louise, One conversation, and she touched the part of me I'd been burying under silence. That night, I sat by the ocean until dawn, thinking about everything. The night Zella left me waiting under the pretense of networking. The time she mocked my friends, laughed at my small business wins. The birthdays she ignored. Holidays made all about her. The times I was sick and she told me not to act dramatic because of a photo shoot. I remembered something else. A night 2 years ago when I pulled an all-nighter to hit a deal deadline. I came home at 6 a.m. Zella was asleep, but Louise had been visiting for the weekend. She poured me a glass of water, made eggs without asking, and said, "Don't burn out for people who won't notice." At the time, I thought it meant it as a general truth. Now I knew she meant Zella. All this time, I had been begging for crumbs from someone who held the whole cake and refused to share it. Meanwhile, someone else had been quietly watching, understanding, never intruding, always seeing. Was it wrong to think about Louise this way? Was it betrayal? Or was it simply the first breath of air after being underwater for too long? The next few days were quiet. No texts from Zella, no apologies, no sudden realization, just silence. And yet that silence healed more than her voice ever could. I started sleeping again, eating better, returned to my office, my real office, the one Zella never saw, and began working like a man with a purpose. The employees greeted me differently now, with respect, even fear. I had let myself shrink in Zella's shadow, but now I remembered who I was. Founder of 3 tech companies, silent investor in 5 others, a man with quiet power, not loud wealth. I didn't need to scream it to the world. I had stopped hiding. Then one afternoon, Louise showed up at my office with a small bag of pastries. "I remembered you like the ones with almond filling," she said, voice unsure. "I thought maybe you haven't been eating well." I stared at the bag, then at her, and for the first time in weeks, my chest didn't feel heavy. "I didn't think you'd do all this," I said quietly. "I know, but sometimes the people who do the most are the ones no one notices. I didn't want to make that mistake again." Her eyes were red, but her hands steady. She wasn't here to fix me. She wasn't here to take Zella's place. She was just here. And that meant everything. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then I asked, "Why do you care?" She looked at me, no hesitation. "Because someone should." And in that moment, I realized Zella was a storm, but Louise was shelter. It was the second Sunday after that dinner. I was just finishing a call with a Japanese investor when my assistant buzzed in. "Adam, you might want to come downstairs." I frowned. "What is it?" "It's Zella. She's in the lobby, and she's not alone." I sighed, rubbed the bridge of my nose, and stood. By the time I got down, I already had a bad feeling, but I wasn't ready for this. Zella stood there, immaculate in a white designer blouse and heels, holding a toddler in her arms. Thompson was beside her, arm around her waist, smiling smugly. Her eyes were red but dry. People in the lobby whispered. My voice was cold. "What is this?" Zella stepped forward. "Adam, I need to talk to you privately. I don't think we have anything left to say." She glanced at Thompson, who nodded for her to continue. Zella clutched the child tighter and then looked at me with words that froze the entire room. "This is your son." The air turned to ice. I stared at her, looking for sincerity, but all I saw was calculation, manipulation, performance. I let out a quiet breath. "Is this a joke?" She shook her head, eyes wide. "No, I found out I was pregnant a few weeks after I didn't know how to tell you. I panicked. But he's yours, Adam, I swear." I looked at the boy, maybe 2 years old, big brown eyes, soft curls, clutching a toy truck. "And Thompson?" I asked. Thompson grinned. "I'm just helping her. You know me. I'm always around when someone drops the ball." Zella spoke quickly. I don't want anything from you. I'm not here to beg, but you have a right to know, and he has a right to know his father. I said nothing. If what she said was true, it changed everything. If it was a lie, it was the lowest, most twisted thing she'd ever done. DNA test today, no delays. I turned and walked away without another word. The next day, the results came in. The boy wasn't mine. Zella had lied. She had brought someone else's child to my doorstep, hoping to bind me to her again, hoping guilt would replace the love she burned to ashes.
When I confronted her, she didn't apologize. "You're the only man I ever truly saw a future with," she said, voice hollow. "Thompson is a clown. He knows it. I know it. But I thought if I could get you to feel something again." I stared at her, seeing a stranger. "You thought using a child would bring me back?" Her eyes welled up. She had nothing left. She wasn't crying for me. She was crying because her last weapon failed. That evening in my penthouse office, Louise called. "I heard," she said softly. "She really went that far." I didn't speak for a moment, then said, "She's gone off the edge." Louise didn't say, "I told you so." She didn't gloat. She just listened. That silence, steady, peaceful, was more comforting than 1,000 words. Then she added, "She's desperate, Adam, because she knows the version of you she thought didn't exist was real all along, and now she's lost it forever." She was right. Zella hadn't just lost a man. She had lost the only one who had loved her without asking for anything in return, and she was finally beginning to realize what that meant. But it was too late. The bridge was already in flames. It happened during the annual Soren Foundation Gala, one of the city's most exclusive events, where business moguls, politicians, and high society gathered under chandeliers to sip wine and silently calculate each other's worth. I hadn't planned on going this year. I hated those rooms full of polished liars and fake smiles. But Louise was being honored for her work in community health, and she personally asked me to attend. She met me at the entrance, dressed in deep emerald, elegant, confident, effortlessly graceful in a way Zella had always tried to manufacture but never mastered. "I'm glad you came," she said softly, slipping her hand into mine. "I thought you'd dodge it." "I almost did," I admitted, "but I figured I should be there for someone who deserves it." Her smile was small, but it stayed in her eyes. Inside, the ballroom was already full, names whispered in corners, camera flashes popping, waiters weaving through the crowd with champagne flutes. I caught a few surprised glances as Louise and I entered together, hand in hand. Most people still associated my name with Zella, seeing me with her sister now. It sent a message loud and clear. We barely took our seats when I heard it. The unmistakable voice, sharp, calculated, laced with bitterness. Zella. She had arrived, Thompson trailing behind her like an obedient shadow. Her gown glittered, her makeup flawless. But something had shifted. The confidence was cracked, the control slipping. She saw me and froze for a moment. Her eyes dropped to where Louise's hand still rested on my arm. Then she smiled, the kind of smile you give right before setting something on fire. During the speeches, she kept stealing glances at me, whispering to Thompson, who looked increasingly uncomfortable with every passing minute. He knew something, or maybe he was just waiting for the explosion. And it came, right after Louise received her award. As she returned to our table, the MC announced a surprise speaker. Zella. I blinked. Louise's hand tensed slightly around her champagne glass. I leaned toward her. "Did you know about this?" She shook her head. "No, it wasn't on the schedule." Zella took the stage, the spotlight hitting her perfectly. She held the mic like a seasoned host. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, her tone syrupy, "before we move on to the final segment, I'd like to share a personal story, one about love, betrayal, and regret." Her eyes locked with mine. A quiet murmur rippled through the room. "There was a time I thought I had everything, a loyal partner, a stable future, but I was bored. I thought I deserved more, so I walked away and someone else stepped in." People started turning toward me now, some recognizing the implications, others whispering. "I hurt him,"
I lied to him, and when I realized what I lost, I tried to fix it. But he had already moved on. To someone else. Someone close to me. Louise sat perfectly still. Zella's voice trembled, but it wasn't from emotion. It was performance. Tonight, I just want to ask one thing. Adam, do you ever think of what we could have been? The room went completely silent. All eyes turned to me. I stood slowly. Every part of me wanted to walk away, let her embarrass herself, stew in her performance alone. But I'd spent too long running from confrontation. Tonight, I would finish what she had started. I walked to the front, past frozen waiters and guests pretending not to listen too closely. I took the mic from her gently. Zella's eyes widened, waiting for me to confess, to say I still loved her, to validate her delusion one last time. But I smiled and turned to the crowd. Zella's right, I said. She did hurt me, lied to me, left me for a man who couldn't even handle the silence of his own shadow. And when she saw I was still standing, thriving even, she tried to tie me back to her with a child that wasn't even mine. Gasps rippled through the room. Several guests turned toward Thompson, who went pale instantly. I don't hate her. In fact, I'm grateful because it was through her that I learned what not to accept in love. Through her, I realized loyalty isn't weakness. Kindness isn't passivity, and I am not someone who needs to prove my worth to anyone.
My eyes found Louise. Because the right person won't need you to set yourself on fire just to keep them warm. Zella's face went blank, her mouth slightly open, voice gone. I handed the mic back to the MC and returned to my seat beside Louise, who blinked quickly, trying not to cry. The applause started slowly, then swelled. Zella froze at the podium for a few seconds before stepping down, her face like cracked porcelain. Thompson was already gone. Later, outside the venue, the city lights stretching behind us, the wind lifting strands of Louise's hair, she whispered, "You didn't have to say all that." "I did," I said. "Why?" She looked at me. "Because you're not a secret, and I'm done letting the wrong people take credit for who I've become." Her smile was soft, honest, a little sad. "Zella's not going to give up," she said. "You know, she already lost," I replied. "No," I shook my head. "She lost because of herself." She leaned into me, head resting on my shoulder. "Do you regret it?" she asked quietly. "Everything with her?" I thought for a moment. "No," I said. "If it wasn't for her, I would have never seen you." And in that moment, I realized the real climax wasn't the confrontation or even the speech. It was the freedom. I was finally free, not just from Zella, but from the version of myself that ever believed I wasn't enough. 3 weeks passed after the gala. 3 quiet, surreal weeks. No chaos, no press ambush, no tearful letters, just silence. And that silence wasn't peace, it was a storm winding up. Then, one morning, my lawyer forwarded an email chain. Zella and Thompson were trying to sell confidential files from one of my early tech companies to a rival firm. Backups, code, client lists, financials. They were negotiating behind the scenes. Bold, but stupid. They didn't know I already owned that rival company, quietly through 3 layers of shell companies. I set the trap in 2 hours. Let them think the deal was about to close. Let them schedule a meeting. Let them sign fake contracts. Let them smile, thinking they'd finally outplayed me. Then I walked into the boardroom. Zella's face went white. Thompson choked mid-laugh. I dropped a folder on the table and sat casually across from them. "You know," I said, "when someone steals from you once, you start keeping track. When they try it again, you bring the fire." Thompson tried to speak. I cut him off with a single look. "You'll both be receiving court summons tomorrow. I've compiled everything. Emails, audio recordings, security footage. You really thought you could walk into my world and play games?" Zella's hands trembled. "Adam, please listen." "No," I said calmly. "I already did. 3 years I listened. I tolerated. I forgave. But you're not a mistake anymore. You're a lesson." She blinked rapidly. "I loved you." "No," I replied.
You used me. You tried to control me, belittle me, manipulate me. And then, when you realized I was never your project, you panicked. I just wanted to fix us, she whispered. I leaned forward, voice sharp but steady. You don't fix a car by blowing it up, Zella. Thompson finally snapped. You're acting like a saint, but you're just bitter. She picked me first. I laughed, a cold, effortless laugh. She picked you because she thought I was weak. She stayed with you because she had no choice. But deep down, she always knew I was the one with the power. I stood and looked directly at both of them. You tried to sell stolen assets. You'll be in court by the end of the month. I could destroy you in one move, but I won't. That's not the revenge I want. Zella looked confused. Thompson scoffed. So you're letting us go? I smiled. No, I'm letting everyone else watch you go down. Within 48 hours, every business contact they had abandoned them. Every investor pulled out. Their names trended, not for fashion or charm, but for fraud. Zella watched quietly, never saying good job or they deserved it. She just sat beside me, slipping her hand in mine sometimes, resting her head on my shoulder at others. She knew I didn't need praise. I needed release. One afternoon, in the garden behind my estate, the sun low, the sky painted orange and gold, Louise asked, "Are you done?" I sipped my tea and nodded. "Yeah, I am." "You don't want to push further?" "No," I said. "They're already burning. I'm not wasting another match." She smiled, proud. "You're not the same man I met at that gallery years ago." "No," I agreed, "but I wish he'd met you sooner." She touched my cheek. "He's still here. He just finally opened his eyes." A week later, I got a letter, handwritten, no return address. Zella. The ink was smudged, the words shaky. She begged me not to press charges, said she had lost everything, friends, family, even Thompson. She wrote that she couldn't sleep, couldn't breathe, couldn't believe I had turned into someone so cold. But the part that stood out most? You used to love me. Doesn't that mean anything? I held the letter over the fireplace, watched the flame consume it slowly, page by page, line by line. The truth was simple. I had loved her. That's what made her downfall so satisfying. She didn't lose me when she left. She lost me the moment she believed I wasn't worth keeping. That night, I took Louise to the same villa I had once planned to propose to Zella at. Same rooftop, same string lights, same music. But this time, there was no hesitation, no doubt. I knelt, and she laughed, not out of surprise, but because she already knew. "I was wondering when you'd catch up," she whispered, tears in her eyes. "I needed to bury the past first," I said. "Now I'm ready," she replied. "Yes," I said. Not because of the villa or money or power, but because the dust settled, she still saw me. That was the difference. Zella wanted to be loved by the version of me that she could control. Louise loved the man I already was. And that was my ultimate revenge. Not the court case, not the bankruptcy, not the downfall, but the fact that in the end, Zella was alone, and I was not.